The Kenyan savanna shimmered under the ruthless morning sun, a vast canvas of ochre and emerald. Kalen Mwamba, a man whose life was measured in sunrises and animal movements, adjusted the telephoto lens of his camera, its familiar weight a comfort against his shoulder. His trained eye scanned the horizon, seeking the telltale twitch of an ear, the ripple of fur in the tall grass. This was his sanctuary, his domain, usually predictable in its wild rhythms. But today the rhythm faltered. Through his lens, a tiny, distressed form materialized. A lion cub, barely more than a few weeks old, lay abandoned, its desperate mules carried on the wind. Fresh hyena tracks scarred the dust nearby, a grim prophecy. Kalen's ethical training, years of strict, non-intervention protocols drilled into his very core, screamed at him to stay put, to let nature take its course. Yet the cub's raw, agonizing cries ignited something primal within him, a deep, overwhelming wave of compassion that threatened to drown every professional boundary. He knew the rules. Interfering with apex predators, especially in this remote sector bordering a rarely patrolled, restricted zone, was anathema. It risked his permit, his career, even legal repercussions. But looking at the cub, Simba Jasiri, as he would later name him, Kalen understood his fate was sealed. Death by starvation, dehydration, or scavenger was a certainty. In a split second, driven by an agonizing compassion that felt both reckless and utterly necessary, he made his decision. He would intervene. As he moved closer, the heat radiating off the ground, Kalen noticed something profoundly unsettling. Beyond the churned earth of hyena tracks, a faint, acrid, metallic smell pricked the air. Sharp, coppery, like old blood mixed with something industrial. His gaze dropped to the leaves of a nearby acacia bush, where an odd, shimmering residue clung, almost oily, catching the light in an unnatural, iridescent sheen. It was utterly alien to the pristine savanna. He pushed the unease aside, his focus snapping back to the cub. Carefully, gently, Kalen unwrapped his spare jacket and gathered the tiny, severely dehydrated form. The cub was feather light, its breathing shallow. As he held it, that strange metallic scent seemed to cling to his hands, permeating the fabric of his jacket, an unwelcome souvenir of the discovery. "This isn't just about survival, little one," Kalen murmured, his voice rough. "Something's off out here, and I just broke every rule for you." The 3-hour drive back to his remote research station was a crucible of anxiety. Every bump of the track, every shift in the cub's fragile weight in his passenger seat was a fresh torment. Simba Jasiri's precarious health was paramount, but beneath that immediate worry simmered a deeper unease. The full implications of his protocol-breaking actions and the unsettling mystery of the metallic smell and residue. The vast, familiar landscape now felt subtly menacing, its silence suddenly heavy with unspoken threats. Upon arrival, he didn't waste a second. Kalen immediately called Dr. Imani Zawadi, a local veterinarian whose expertise was only matched by her unwavering discretion. She arrived within the hour, her face a mask of professional calm, though her eyes held a question Kalen hadn't yet voiced. Imani's examination was thorough, grim. "He's barely hanging on, Kalen," she confirmed, her voice low as she checked the cub's vitals. "Severe malnutrition, heavy parasite load, and significant trauma. But there's also this." She gently pried open Simba Jasiri's mouth, revealing an unusual discoloration on his gums, a faint, almost imperceptible metallic stain. Kalen's breath hitched. "Metallic? I found him near a strange metallic smell and an oily residue on the bushes, like iridescent." Imani raised an eyebrow, her professional calm cracking to reveal a flicker of deep concern in her eyes. "Metallic? In this remote sector? That's not just concerning, Kalen. It's unprecedented. Nothing like that should be out there." He knew the magnitude of his actions. By keeping the cub at his research station, even for a night, Kalen was officially defying strict wildlife management directives. His permit, his career, his very presence in the savannah were all on the line. But as he began his round-the-clock care, preparing a nutrient-rich formula for the frail cub, a silent vow formed within him. He would protect Simba Jasiri, and perhaps in doing so, he might uncover the source of this subtle, unnatural threat. Later, as he finally settled the cub into a makeshift nest in his office, Kalen glanced at the worn maps tacked to his wall. His gaze lingered on the coordinates of the cub's discovery. An ice-cold realization washed over him. Simba Jasiri had been found unusually close to a heavily restricted, infrequently patrolled zone, a zone whose very existence was shrouded in official secrecy. He turned to Amani, the gravity of his words heavy in the quiet room. This isn't just a rescue anymore, Amani. This feels like a warning. Words, 894, the research station transformed into an intensive care unit. With Dr. Imani's expert guidance, Kalen fashioned a makeshift incubator, regulating its temperature with meticulous care. He lived by the clock, bottle-feeding Simba Jasiri every 2 hours, day and night. Sleep became a forgotten luxury, replaced by the rhythmic rise and fall of the cub's fragile chest, a silent testament to Kalen's unwavering dedication. Against all odds, Simba Jasiri's recovery was remarkably swift, almost defying logic. Despite his initial struggles, the cub's strength returned with an astonishing robustness that even surprised Dr. Imani. His amber eyes, once clouded with suffering, now gleamed with an extraordinary, almost knowing intensity, a depth Kalen had never witnessed in an animal so young. During a follow-up blood test, Dr. Imani's brow furrowed in concentration as she analyzed the results. "Kalen," she called, her voice tight, "there are trace elements in his system. Not typical toxins. These are complex synthetic compounds. I've never seen anything like it in a wild animal, and it's almost too faint to detect. These aren't natural." Her words confirmed Kalen's gut feeling, the metallic stain, the oily residue. It was all connected. Simba Jasiri, for his part, repaid Kalen's efforts with an immediate and profound bond. The cub would purr deeply, a resonant rumble that vibrated through Kalen's chest, and cry with an inconsolable whine whenever Kalen left his sight. This level of recognition and attachment defied typical wild animal behavior, an instinctual trust that Kalen found both heartwarming and deeply perplexing. By the second month, Simba Jasiri had tripled in weight. He moved with a confident swagger, his once wobbly gait replaced by a powerful stride. More unsettling were his senses, unnervingly keen for his age, almost as if he could detect subtle shifts in the air, movements Kalen himself couldn't perceive. He would stare fixedly into the distance, his ears swiveling, responding to an unseen presence. The ethical dilemma deepened. Wildlife experts advised transferring Simba Jasiri to a specialized sanctuary, stressing the dangers of habituating him to humans. But Kalen couldn't. He sensed Simba Jasiri's unique condition, his extraordinary bond, might be crucial to understanding something larger, something sinister, unfolding in the savanna. He delayed the transfer against all advice, trusting his instincts over established protocols. During their supervised excursions into the immediate vicinity of the station, Kalen started noticing them. Wild lions, observing from a distance. This wasn't territorial aggression, not a threat display. It was a focused, deliberate watchfulness. "They're not just curious, Imani," Kalen observed one evening, reviewing his long lens shots. "They're monitoring us." One magnificent scarred lioness, clearly a matriarch, became a frequent presence. She would observe from barely 50 meters away, not fleeing their approach, but studying Kalen and Simba Jasiri with an almost analytical, ancient gaze that sent a shiver down Kalen's spine. Later, reviewing his photographs, Kalen noticed something even more unsettling. Hidden in the background of many shots, an entire pride was subtly revealed. Not just one curious female, but an organized group, all observing with uncanny coordination. This level of collective, sustained surveillance defied known lion behavior. Word of the unprecedented relationship between the cub and the photographer eventually reached Professor Baraka Omari, a leading lion behavior expert. Skeptical but intrigued, he requested to observe. Days turned into weeks, and Professor Omari, initially dismissive, grew increasingly perplexed. "This level of cognitive assessment, it's unprecedented," he mused, watching the pride from a discreet distance. "They seem to understand the nature of your bond with the cub." On one particular excursion, as Kalen and Simba Jasiri inadvertently strayed a little too close to the boundary of the restricted zone, Josh, observing lions suddenly became agitated. They made low, urgent chuffs, a series of guttural warnings, subtly but insistently herding Kalen and Simba Jasiri away from the boundary. Kalen felt an instinctual alarm, a cold dread blossoming in his chest. It was a clear, unspoken warning. Back at the station, Dr. Imani began secretly researching the unique compounds found in Simba Jasiri's blood. She hit dead ends, encountered unusual data blocks, and noticed suspicious activity online surrounding keywords related to synthetic biology and wildlife. She began to suspect a sophisticated cover-up. "They're not just watching him," Kalen told Imani, the words heavy with a new, chilling realization. "I think they're watching us, and I swear they're trying to warn me about something in that restricted zone." The savanna, once a place of predictable beauty, now felt alive with an unseen presence. Kalen felt an increasing, unsettling sense of being watched, not just by the pride, but by something far more insidious, a chill that had nothing to do with the night air. Words, 899. The sun, a searing white disk, beat down on Kalen and Simba Jasiri as they explored a rocky outcropping, its summit offering a panoramic view of the vast savanna. Kalen's camera was poised, but his focus was on the cub, now a robust youngster, exploring with boundless curiosity. Suddenly, the air grew heavy. From behind a veil of thorny acacia, three adult lionesses emerged, their eyes fixed on them. Then, the massive dominant male, his mane a dark halo, stepped into view. They formed a deliberate, coordinated semicircle, blocking any easy retreat. This wasn't aggression. It was a carefully choreographed blockade. Instead of cowering, Simba Jasiri, now a confident young lion, took a step forward. He released a high-pitched primal vocalization Kalen had never heard before, a sound that was both a plea and a declaration. The scarred lioness, the matriarch Kalen knew so well, responded with a series of soft chuffs. The male, instead of roaring a warning, settled onto his haunches, displaying patience rather than aggression. It was an unprecedented interspecies dialogue, a moment suspended between the wild and the inexplicable. For 40 bewildering minutes, Kalen watched astonished. Simba Jasiri talked to the pride, his strange vocalizations met with what seemed to be instructional sounds from the adults. They appeared to be teaching him, patiently, the complex language of lion society, proper calls, subtle body language. It was a lesson, a transfer of knowledge, unlike anything Kalen had ever witnessed. Over the radio, Dr. Imani's voice crackled, a mix of exhilaration and dread. "Kalen, this is groundbreaking. Document everything, every sound, every movement, but be careful. This level of intelligence might be precisely what they want to keep hidden." Her fear was palpable, a cold warning. As the wild lions finally began to withdraw, they moved with deliberate slowness, frequently pausing to look back. And then, another extraordinary display. Simba Jasiri positioned himself protectively in front of Kalen, mimicking the pride's guarding stance. The pride was accepting Kalen, the human, as part of their extended family. A new, sophisticated monitoring routine began. Individual members of the pride would appear at various times and locations, maintaining calculated visual contact with Kalen and Simba Jasiri. It demonstrated remarkable strategic thinking, a coordinated surveillance that felt far too intelligent for mere instinct. The scarred lioness became Kalen's guide. One sweltering afternoon, she led him with an insistent series of chuffs and head nods toward a dried riverbed. Following her implicit instructions, Kalen investigated. He found it, an abandoned, expertly camouflaged drilling site nestled almost perfectly into the landscape. It was littered with strange, unidentifiable metallic components, gleaming dully in the dust. A sickening, pungent chemical smell emanated from a concealed fissure in the earth, a noxious exhalation from the ground itself. His heart pounded against his ribs. This was it. Kalen discreetly photographed the site, every angle, every discarded piece of machinery, the unnatural discoloration of the soil. He collected small samples of the metallic residue, recognizing the exact shimmering, oily substance he'd seen near Simba Jasiri's initial discovery. The cub hadn't been an abandoned orphan. He had been a victim of this, tainted by this unseen pollution. After reviewing Kalen's frantic photos of the site and hearing the astounding account of Simba Jasiri's instructional dialogue with the Pride, Professor Omari's initial skepticism evaporated, replaced by grave concern. "This goes beyond mere animal behavior, Kalen," he admitted, his voice hushed. "And that site, it looks disturbingly familiar to whispers I've heard, hushed conversations among colleagues about unauthorized geological surveys and strange energy readings in restricted zones." As Kalen headed back from the site, samples carefully secured, a new fear chilled him. A drone, sleek and silent, hovered high overhead, its shadow a fleeting dark stain on the savanna. Moments later, a black, unmarked SUV appeared on a remote track, its tinted windows glinting, observing him from a distance. Kalen felt an undeniable, chilling sensation of being hunted, the hunter becoming the prey. "Kalen, be careful!" Dr. Imani's urgent voice crackled over his radio. "My research into those compounds, it's like a ghost. Files are vanishing, websites are being scrubbed clean. We've stirred something up that wants to stay buried." A terrifying clarity settled over Kalen. Simba Jasiri's unusual condition, the Pride's strange, organized behavior, the hidden drilling site, Imani's blocked research. It was all connected to a powerful, secretive human entity. A dangerous truth lay buried, and they were too close. The black SUV, emboldened, began to approach, picking up speed on the rough track. Just as it neared too close, two massive male lions of the Pride, silent until now, suddenly emerged from concealment. They roared in unison, a guttural, earth-shaking sound that ripped through the air, positioning themselves directly between Kalen's and the vehicle. The SUV screeched to a halt, its tires kicking up dust, then quickly spun around and retreated, disappearing over the horizon. The dominant male lion approached Kalen, his massive head held high. He studied Kalen intently, his golden eyes deep with an ancient wisdom. Then with a profound, almost human gesture, he lowered his great head in acknowledgement. A silent pact formed between man and beast, before disappearing with the others into the shimmering heat. Kalen knew then that he was no longer alone in this fight. Words 899. A routine morning unfolded, but Simba Jasiri, now a powerful 7-month-old, was anything but routine. He paced restlessly at the edge of the camp, his amber eyes so remarkably intelligent, scanning the horizon with an unprecedented intensity. His primal instincts, though nurtured by Kalen, were fully awakened, pulling him toward an unseen focus in the vast savanna. Kalen followed the cub's gaze and spotted it, a massive Cape buffalo separated from its herd, moving with a noticeable limp. It appeared injured, but something felt unsettlingly off. The buffalo's injuries seemed too convenient, almost strategically placed. A gash on its flank, a subtle hesitation in its gait, as if designed to lure predators. A cold dread settled in Kalen's stomach. Simba Jasiri began to stalk, his movements fluid, low to the ground, purely instinctual. Kalen watched, a chilling realization dawning in him. The buffalo, the cub's response. This wasn't just nature's course. This was an engineered opportunity, a test, and Simba Jasiri was the unwitting subject. As if on cue, the familiar forms of the local pride emerged from concealment. They moved with a silent, deliberate purpose, not to interfere, but to observe and guide. The scarred lioness positioned herself strategically, using low, resonant chuffs to direct Simba Jasiri's next moves, subtly indicating approach angles, masking wind direction. The dominant male completed a silent, deadly triangle formation, a perimeter of watchful wisdom. Kalen witnessed a masterclass in intergenerational learning. The Pride provided subtle guidance through positioning and vocalizations, teaching Simba Jasiri timing, approach angles, and risk assessment. It was a dangerous collaboration, breaking every known research protocol, yet undeniably effective. With the Pride's strategic support, Simba Jasiri surged forward, a blur of muscle and raw instinct, successfully bringing down the massive buffalo. He paused, looking directly at Kalen, his eyes burning with a triumphant intensity. A primal, resonant roar erupted from his chest, echoing across the plains, seeming to say, "Did you see what I accomplished?" The Pride's response was equally extraordinary. Rather than competing for the kill, they allowed Simba Jasiri first feeding rights, standing back respectfully. It was a clear sign of acceptance, a deference, and an unprecedented gratitude towards the cub Kalen had saved. But the scene was shattered by a new, insidious presence. As Kalen observed the pride, a flicker of movement caught his eye. A small, camouflaged team of heavily armed individuals, moving with chilling precision, meticulously collected samples from the perimeter of the kill site. Their professional covert movements screamed military or corporate security, utterly out of place in the wild. One operative, scanning with advanced optics, spotted Kalen. There was a moment of frozen, terrifying eye contact. Kalen dove for cover as gunshots, sharp and deadly, echoed across the plains. He barely escaped, scrambling behind a rock formation, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. They hadn't been observing the hunt. They were monitoring the effects of the buffalo's engineered weakness, and now Kalen was a direct target. He was a witness to something they desperately wanted to keep hidden. The pride reacted violently to the gunshots. The dominant male and the scarred lioness, their roars now laced with fury, immediately charged the operatives, scattering them in chaos. They intentionally blocked the operatives' pursuit of Kalen, using their massive bodies and terrifying presence to herd him away from immediate danger. Panting, heart-hammering, Kalen muttered to himself, "They set this up. They wanted to see how he hunted, and they wanted me silenced. These lions. They just saved my life from humans, Prof." Omari arrived shortly after, surprisingly accompanied by a National Geographic crew, unknowingly part of a larger, subtle narrative control that Kalen was only beginning to piece together. After hearing Kalen's frantic account and seeing the cryptic photos of the operatives, his face was grim. "This isn't just a research interest anymore, Kalen," he stated, his voice tight. "This is a full-blown hostile operation." Simultaneously, Dr. Imani confirmed her latest chilling findings. The synthetic compounds in Simba Jasiri were indeed used in advanced, experimental mineral extraction processes, and the buffalo showed identical markers of the same strange compounds. "They're contaminating the ecosystem, Kalen," she whispered over the encrypted comms. "And they're using wildlife as their involuntary test subjects. They're trying to figure out how these compounds affect the food chain, the entire ecosystem." Kalen knew he could not stay. His research station was compromised, his life in immediate danger. He needed to move, to disappear, and the pride, now his undeniable protectors, implicitly agreed. The human-lion alliance against a common, human enemy was solidified, etched in the dust and the taste of fear. Words, $8.99. If you've been gripped by Kalen's fight for Simba Jasiri, brace yourselves. The stakes are about to get terrifyingly high, and the danger isn't just lurking, it's actively hunting them. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this story, because Kalen needs us to bear witness to the shocking truth he's uncovering. Kalen and Dr. Imani plunged deeper into their covert investigation, the savanna morphing into a battleground of shadows and secrets. The restricted zone, once a mere boundary on a map, was now understood to be ground zero for Project Chimera, a name that whispered of unnatural horrors. Evidence of contamination mounted, each sample a silent scream against the escalating, suspicious activities surrounding it. Simba Jasiri, now a formidable young lion, exhibited unsettling shifts in behavior. His playful wrestling with Kalen grew rougher, his claws sheathed, but his power undeniable. His territorial instincts were more pronounced, his amber eyes often shadowed with an unfamiliar intensity. Kalen felt a growing tension, unsure if this heightened wildness was natural maturation or further influenced by the unknown compounds coursing through his system. One evening, as Kalen prepared Simba Jasiri's feed, a flicker of movement in the nearby bushes caught the cub's attention. Kalen later realized it was a subtly placed tripwire camera. Without warning, Simba Jasiri's hunting instincts seemed to activate. He lunged at Kalen, knocking the photographer to the ground with enough force to leave him breathless, winded. For a terrifying moment, Simba Jasiri's amber eyes lost their familiar warmth, replaced by a cold, predatory focus that Kalen had seen only in truly wild, untamed beasts. Just as Kalen feared the worst, a shadow detached itself from the encroaching dusk. The scarred lioness, the matriarch of the pride, appeared at the edge of the clearing. She released a sharp, specific vocalization, a sound Kalen had heard during their instructional exchanges, but never with such urgency. Simba Jasiri's predatory trance broke instantly. His eyes regained their familiar warmth, almost as if shaking off a spell, and he backed away, nudging Kalen with his head in what felt like an apology. Kalen understood then. It wasn't a true attack. It was a demonstration, a carefully staged event orchestrated by the Pride. Through Simba Jasiri, they showed Kalen the growing danger of their presence together, a stark warning about his own vulnerability, or perhaps a profound message for any unseen observers. Meanwhile, Professor Omari, now fully committed to their cause, made a breakthrough. He shared a classified report he had secretly accessed, detailing Project Chimera. It outlined a shadowy corporate governmental initiative testing highly disruptive bioluminescent mineral extraction agents with severe environmental side effects. The restricted zone, with its metallic residue and chemical odors, aligned perfectly with the project's reported test sites. The horror was now given a name. Jartimani, analyzing the National Geographic crew's public footage, uncovered a more insidious betrayal. The footage had been subtly manipulated, key details omitted, the narrative meticulously controlled. "They're not just documenting Kalen," she revealed, her voice strained. "They're shaping the story, burying the truth. This is bigger than we imagined. They're using the media to control public perception, even before we've exposed them." The Pride began to actively guide Kalen to new areas, their intent clear. They led him to hidden cameras, discarded, uniquely designed equipment stamped with Project Chimera logos, and even unmarked grave sites for animals showing identical biomarkers to Simba Jasiri. They were communicating a coordinated counter-strategy, using Kalen as their conduit. "They're showing me things, Amani," Kalen radioed, his voice filled with awe and dread. "It's like they want me to expose what's happening. They see me as part of their fight against this human destruction." The stakes were impossibly high. Kalen and Dr. Imani realized they were not just documenting wildlife. They were exposing a dangerous, well-funded conspiracy with potentially global ramifications. Their lives were at extreme risk. The survival of the savanna, the fate of every creature within it, hung in the balance. Simba Jasiri, now almost fully integrated into the wild pride, continued to spend precious time with Kalen, his loyalty unwavering. He often returned with new sense of the wild, a deeper understanding of the land, acting as a crucial bridge between the human investigation and the lion's ancient awareness. His affection was now interwoven with a primal, shared purpose, a silent promise. Surveillance on Kalen intensified dramatically. He spotted sophisticated, high-tech traps being laid near the contaminated zone, clearly designed for human operatives who might stray too close, not just animals. The net was closing, tightening around them all. Kalen knew with a heavy heart that he had to release his findings to the world. It meant going against powerful, unseen forces that would stop at nothing to protect their secrets. The fate of the ecosystem and perhaps Simba Jasiri rested on his courage. He began to prepare for the inevitable confrontation, understanding that exposing the truth might mean sacrificing his life. But it was a price he was willing to pay for Simba Jasiri, the pride, and the very soul of the savanna. The ultimate sacrifice was no longer a hypothetical, but an approaching reality. Words, 899. The air crackled with anticipation as Kalen, Dr. Imani, and a now fully convinced and determined Professor Omari finalized their dossier of evidence. It was a meticulous compilation. Kalen's raw, undeniable photographs, Dr. Imani's irrefutable lab results detailing synthetic compounds and environmental toxins, and Professor Omari's painstakingly acquired, classified intelligence on Project Chimera. They knew this was their only chance to expose the truth. Their path into the heart of the restricted zone was forged not by maps, but by ancient instinct. The Pride, acting as their guides, led them along hidden game trails, paths known only to the wild, bypassing layers of sophisticated human security. They found a less secure entry point into the heavily guarded main Project Chimera facility, a concealed canyon, scarred and unnatural, leading to an underground complex. As they approached the facility entrance, the silence was shattered. Armed security forces, clad in dark tactical gear, emerged from concealment, weapons raised, blocking their path. A tense standoff began, the metallic scent of fear mingling with the ozone of hidden technology. A lead operative, his face grim, spoke into a comms device, his words echoing in the sudden stillness. "You know too much, Mr. Mwamba. This is a restricted zone for your own safety and for what you carry." He nodded subtly toward the satchel Kalen clutched, containing their evidence. Then, the savannah erupted. From all directions, the entire wild pride, a wave of golden fur and furious muscle, charged. Led by the dominant male and the scarred lioness, they roared in a unified, terrifying assault. Their target was not Kalen's group, but the security forces, creating a strategic diversion, a living, roaring shield. Simba Jasiri, now a formidable young lion whose roar was nearly as deep as the dominant male's, positioned himself directly and fiercely between Kalen and the armed guards. He let out a powerful, defiant roar that echoed across the savannah, a primal call to arms for the pride, and a clear, unwavering statement of allegiance to the man who had saved him. In the ensuing chaos, with lions engaging security forces in a ferocious, calculated ballet, Kalen seized the moment. With Professor Omari providing cover and Dr. Imani a steady hand, he swiftly disabled a communication relay tower. With its signal compromised, he then uploaded their entire damning evidence package to a secure global network. Project Chimera was exposed to the world. The uploaded data unveiled the horrifying scale of the corporate/governmental conspiracy: illegal bioweapon testing, environmentally destructive mineral extraction using untested, bioluminescent agents in a deliberate, ruthless cover-up. The savanna's endangered species, the very heart of this ecosystem, had been used as involuntary test subjects, their suffering a silent scream now finally heard. The aftermath was swift and profound. The security forces, overwhelmed, their communication lines down, their operation compromised and exposed, were forced to retreat in disarray. News of the uploaded data rapidly spread, triggering international outrage, investigations, and a global outcry for justice. The shadows that had concealed Project Chimera were now ripped apart by the harsh light of truth. After the dust settled and the human threat dissipated, Simba Jasiri approached Kalen. His eyes, now fiercely wild but filled with deep gratitude and understanding, met Kalen's. He rubbed his great head against Kalen's leg one last, affectionate time. A farewell, a bond acknowledged. Then the scarred lioness and the dominant male approached. They nudged Simba Jasiri gently towards the pride, a silent gesture of acceptance. They acknowledged Kalen with silent, respectful gazes before leading Simba Jasiri away, back into the wild, his rightful place among his own, fully integrated. Kalen, Dr. Imani, and Professor Omari became key figures in the subsequent international investigations, testifying against the perpetrators and tirelessly advocating for global wildlife protection and environmental justice. The pride, now free from the immediate threat of Project Chimera, continued to thrive, with Simba Jasiri fully integrated, a living testament to the extraordinary intelligence, unprecedented gratitude, and protective instincts of nature when faced with human corruption. Looking out at the distant savannah, Kalen's voice, filled with emotion, narrated, "We thought we saved a cub, but in the end the lion saved us. They taught us that even in the wild, there are greater guardians and deeper conspiracies than we ever dared to imagine, and that sometimes the most profound wisdom comes not from science, but from the silent, ancient heart of the earth itself." Yet, a lingering mystery remained. The sheer depth and resources behind Project Chimera suggested it might only be one small piece of a much larger, darker puzzle, leaving Kalen forever watchful, knowing humanity's shadow still loomed. End. Words, 899. Conclusion. The morning sun once cast long shadows across the Kenyan savannah as Kalen Mwamba, much like any other day, adjusted his telephoto lens for what he thought would be a routine day. But nothing could have prepared him for the discovery that would change his life forever. Hidden beneath a fallen acacia tree, a tiny lion cub, Simba Jasiri, lay alone, his desperate mewing sounds piercing the stillness. Kalen, a man who had witnessed nature's harsh realities countless times, broke every rule, driven by a profound, agonizing compassion. What began as the forbidden rescue of an orphaned lion cub blossomed into an unprecedented alliance with the wild. Simba Jasiri, the cub who found a human family, led Kalen not just to a deeper understanding of animal intelligence, but to a chilling discovery, a corporate cover-up, Project Chimera, poisoning the very heart of the savannah. The pride's surprising reaction, their silent guidance and fierce protection, revealed a conspiracy far more insidious than Kalen could have imagined. In the end, it was not Kalen who saved the wild, but the wild, through Simba Jasiri and his pride, that saved Kalen, forcing humanity to confront its own destructive shadows. The immediate threat was neutralized, the evidence laid bare for the world. But the sheer depth of Project Chimera hinted at a larger, darker puzzle, leaving Kalen forever watchful. The savannah, now scarred but healing, stood as a testament to the primal power and wisdom of its true guardians. End.